one of the best pieces of advice I got about reading came from George Raveling, the great basketball coach. He's a mentor of mine, civil rights pioneer. He said that his grandmother called him in to her kitchen one day, and she said, "George, why did the slave masters hide money in books?" And he said, "I don't know, Grandma." And she said, "Because they knew the slaves would never read them." And what he took from that is one, that reading is very valuable, that there's a huge ROI in it. And it's true, right? They don't hide money in books anymore, but in a sense they do. Books cost like $10, but people don't read them. And they don't realize that a book can be the greatest investment you ever make in your life. That's what Warren Buffett said. He said the single best investment he ever made was buying a copy of Benjamin Graham's Intelligent Investor. But what George Raveling told me he took from this was that reading was a moral duty, that people had fought and struggled. Frederick Douglass teaches himself to read basically under penalty of death, right? You have to see reading as a moral duty. People struggled and fought and clawed their way to get to a point where books are everywhere and books are easily accessible. So to reject that is it's not just beyond stupid, it's offensive. It's offensive to the people who would have killed for the access to information that you have. The Stoics talk about how basically history is the same thing happening over and over and over again. Marcus Aurelius talks in Meditations about how the future is going to be exactly the same as what's happening right now, which is going to be exactly the same as what was happening in the time of Vespasian or any of the other emperors. So this is really important, right? You can see that as depressing. I see it as a profound insight. If history repeats, then if you want to understand the future, if you want to be able to predict the future, you have to read. One of the best books I read at the beginning of the pandemic was John Barry's The Great Influenza. And that told me everything I needed to know about how to respond to the pandemic in that moment. But it also gave me a real glimpse of how events were going to unfold in the future. My understanding of the Civil War, my reading of Shakespeare, my understanding of history has helped me understand the events happening in the United States since 2016. Right? If you want to understand the future and if you want to understand what's happening right now, the best way to understand current events, like if you want to understand the rise of China and the inevitable clash of civilizations between China and the United States, go read Thucydides' History of the Peloponnesian War. Thucydides wrote that trying to create a document that would last for all time, and it is a geopolitical masterclass. The way to become an informed citizen, people go, but is it, when I talk about don't read the news, right? I say read books, don't read the news. And people go, but how will I be an informed citizen? And this is silly. The best way to be an informed citizen is not to watch a breaking CNN story or to read the latest piece from the New York Times or worse, whatever, news site in your filter bubble is. The best way to understand current events, again, is through history. John Adams says, there is no history perhaps better adopted to this useful purpose than that of Thucydides. You will find it full of instruction to the orator, the statesman, the general, as well as to the historian and the philosopher, right? Doris Kearns Goodwin, her book Leadership in Turbulent Times, which I've recommended. If you want to understand how to be a leader in turbulent times, study the leaders who went through turbulent times. Don't read the latest Harvard Business Review case study, right? Go to the core of it. Don't be satisfied with the gist of it. And here's what I find. When I read history, when I read the core primary documents, the letters, the works that influence the people who wrote the letters or the Constitution or the laws. What I understand is their intention. I understand the real truth of it, and these things are not nearly as politically charged, and they're not as biased as they are when you're getting them from the news today. Everyone, I think, thinks like, oh, I'm literate. I know how to read. But General Mattis talks about functional illiteracy. He says, if you haven't read hundreds of books, you are functionally illiterate, right? And what he means is that people have been doing whatever it is that you're doing. In my case, being a writer, being an entrepreneur, people have been doing that for thousands of years. So if I don't avail myself of their insight, I am functionally illiterate. I am stupidly preventing myself from understanding their insights. I am learning by experience what I could be learning from the experiences of others. That's why the Stoics understood history. That's why they read widely. They knew it wasn't about just reading a little bit. Marcus Aurelius talks about how Rusticus teaches him not to be satisfied with just getting the gist of it. He says you have to go to the core of it, right? So my worry is not that I can't read. I know I can read, but my worry is what Mark Twain said. He said, there's no difference between someone who can't read and doesn't read. They are both illiterate, right? So I fear the illiteracy of not having a wide breadth of understanding of the human condition, of history, of events, of philosophy. So I read widely for that reason. The world is a lonely place. It's a scary place. We all feel like we're going through stuff. What I think reading does is reading makes you not alone, right? James Baldwin says, you think your pain is so unique, and then you read. Marcus Aurelius felt like, he had the loneliest job in the world. But by studying the other emperors, by studying history, by studying kings, by watching plays in the theater, by reading philosophy, he understood that this is a timeless problem. He understood what his job really was like and what it did to people, and that's why he wasn't corrupted or broken by it. A book is screaming out, trying to connect with someone. This is the hard-won wisdom of a person. This is experience, this is pain, this is struggle. And to not avail yourself of that is so stupid. To not talk to people who have been through what you've been through is dangerous, but it's also, to do it is to solve the loneliness and isolation that we feel. It's to make us feel connected to other people for all time. You can read, there's this letter from Seneca that he writes, I open my book, Stillness is the Key, with it, where he's talking about just being busy and trying to focus in his apartment, but there's all these noises, even meditations, like Marcus Aurelius is writing during the Antonine Plague, and you're like, oh, he went through what we are going through right now. And so again, reading softens solitude and makes you not feel alone anymore. A final note of why you read. Reading is a conversation with wisdom. It's a way to access the wisdom of the past. Zeno, as a young man, goes and he visits the oracle at Delphi. And the oracle tells him, you will become wise when you have conversations with the dead. What does that mean? He realizes later, as he's standing in a bookstore in Athens, that the oracle meant you will become wise when you read. He was reading a book of Socrates and he realized, I'm having a conversation with Socrates as if he was here right now. And so reading not only softens solitude, it not only makes you, not functionally illiterate, it not only teaches you about the past, it's a way to connect with the past. I feel like over the years, I know Marcus Aurelius almost as well as I know a friend. Or a family member. We've been having an ongoing, he is as real to me. Seneca's writing is as real to me as if they actually lived, because I've really dedicated myself to understanding them. And because of what they put down in pages, it has produced something that is immortal, right? None of us can live forever. The Stoics obviously knew the idea of memento mori, that none of this lasts, and that Marcus Aurelius isn't around to enjoy his posthumous fame. And yet, he's as real to us in these videos and in these conversations as anyone who is alive right now. And I think that's just an incredible idea. And so, yes, sure, we're all ashes and dust, but something survives in the form of books. We can have a conversation with those who are dead and we can learn from their experiences. And I would say the last thing, if you are looking to build a reading practice, we built this thing called the Daily Stoic Read to Lead Challenge. And it's like 2 weeks of exercises and practices and sort of steps that will help you have a great reading year. You can check that out, dailystoic.com/reading. And of course, if you want a book to start, here's some: The Power Broker by Robert Caro, Roman Honor by Carlin Barton, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, Seneca's Letters. If you want to check out my books, The Obstacle is the Way, Stillness is the Key, Daily Stoic, Ego is the Enemy, and a couple more. But thank you. Hey, it's Ryan Holiday. Thank you so much for watching our videos. Every day I send out an email inspired by the best Stoic wisdom, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, all designed to help you live a better life. That's what I'm trying to do. The email takes 5 minutes to read. Over 300,000 people get it. That's the largest community of Stoics ever in the history of the world. I'd love to have you check it out. Totally free. Unsubscribe whenever you want, but I think you'll like it. Sign up at dailystoic.com/email.